Whether we like it or not, the 21st century is going to be the century of Asia and the century of China. 40 years ago, there was no China. Now it's the second largest economy in the world, et cetera, et cetera. There are gigantic changes and prosperity taking place in Asia. And I mean, I can look out the window and see it. Anybody who doesn't know about it can just look out the window or come to Asia. You'll see. It's astonishing the changes that have been taking place. But the same thing happened in England in the early 19th century. Astonishing changes took. Look at America. America was absurd 150 years ago. People thought it was a joke. They quickly learned that America was an astonishing success. A lot of the money is flocking to Asia, as you probably know. China's got the largest foreign currency reserves in the world. Japan is number 2. Korea has huge numbers. Many Asian countries have staggering amounts of assets that they have built up. So people's money is coming to Asia, but also some immigration, nothing like it was in America in the 19th century or even the 20th century. But no, people are. I live in Singapore now, and I see more and more foreigners all the time. Somebody's coming, not just with their money, but with their bodies as well. China's having problems, and they will have more, but I don't see anybody else on the horizon that 30 years from now, 80 years from now, will be as successful as China. The United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. I don't like that, but it's a fact. I have to deal with that. 40 years ago, America was still a creditor nation. So changes are taking place, and the world, if you want to be successful, you have to recognize changes and adapt to those changes. Do I like the fact that America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world? No, I have 2 teenage children, but those are facts, and we have to deal with that. America continues to have a lot of power, but history shows that when countries get overextended, either economically, militarily, politically, whatever, they usually peak and go into decline. I'm not talking in my opinion. This is a simple historic fact. 100 years ago, Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world. There was no number 2. 50 years later, it was bankrupt, literally bankrupt. The IMF had to bail out what had been the richest, most powerful country in the world. Go back in history. It has always been changing, and it always will. When countries get overextended, they usually wind up in decline. Well, what should we do? We should cut spending with an axe. No, with a chainsaw. We have this gigantic debt, and it gets higher every day. We should cut spending. We should start reducing our debt. Are we going to do it? Of course not, David. Come on. If you ran on a policy in Washington, maybe you would get elected. But after a short time, people would say, wait a minute, this is very painful. We don't want to do this anymore. Nobody likes pain, even if they know what's good for you. So no, is America going to do it? No. I mean, I wish we would, but I know simple facts. America is certainly, if you said to most people in America, where do you want to go? They would say America. Where do you want to invest? They would say America. But that's because most people still don't know the facts, just as many people did not know the facts about the UK or about other countries that peaked and went into decline. Yes, no, America's great. We've got great PR, great movies, great TV, great lots of things. But that does not mean that beneath the surface there are not serious problems developing. When things are good for a while, people get overextended, they get overconfident, they think it's new investors come in, new investors call their friends and tell them, oh, I've discovered this new thing called the stock market. It's so much fun and you can make money and it's easy. It's easy to make money, and that's always happens at the end of war. It always has happened. It's happening again. Things get overextended, things get expensive, and we always have a bear market. Less than 2 years ago that the Federal Reserve was saying there's not going to be inflation. And then they said, oh, it's temporary. Don't worry. This is transitory. These guys don't know what they're doing. Most central bank officials or bureaucrats or academics. They don't know how the world works. The biggest risk of the central banks, not just the Federal Reserve. The guy in Japan has said, he will print his word unlimited amounts of money, and he does. Goes to work every day and prints as fast as he can. We have a lot of central banks doing things like that. Therein lies our problem. Whenever you have a lot of money printing, it distorts markets, it distorts inflation, it distorts interest rates and gigantic debt. In 1980, America was a creditor nation. We were still a creditor. Now we're the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. Big things have changed since then, but not for the good, at least not as far as an American, which I am. No, I see what's happening. There was no red, there was still red China then. There was still Soviet Union then. A lot of huge things that have changed in the world. The problem is it's very rare in history that everybody has known a recession is coming. This is the most broadcast and most forecast recession that I've ever seen in my life. And knowing that most people are usually wrong, I would say we're probably not there, depending on where you're talking about. But for instance, China has been closed. Now China is opening up. That's going to give a big boost to the world economy because they are the second largest economy in the world. So I would not be surprised if there is not a recession yet. I expect it certainly to come. The third year of a presidential cycle in American history has usually been a good year in the American stock market. And this is year 3 coming up. And the reason that happens is politicians try to spend a lot of money preparing for year 4, the next election, so they can get reelected. So I would imagine that things are really better than we read, just because the world doesn't work that way. If everybody knows something, it's usually wrong. That's not to say that there won't be a recession coming eventually. It's just that I have never seen in my investing career or read about one that was so widely anticipated and so widely forecast. The world just doesn't work that way. When everybody knows something, it's usually not right. I've been around long enough to know that 19 or 20% is not very serious. Wait till it's down 70 or 80%. Wait till you see companies going bankrupt, left, right, and center. So far, this is not fun. Do not get me wrong. This is not fun. But it's certainly not dramatic or even significant in the history of financial markets. So if we're going to solve this problem, we're going to have to face a lot of pain. Do I like it? No, but I have to deal with facts.